Okay guys, so we are going to do things a little bit differently today. I'm not going to focus too much on Amazon. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is sharing with you my entrepreneurial backstory and also sharing with you some of the biggest lessons that I've learned during my years in business. So initially, I want to take you all the way back to 1996. That is where my story begins, and it's also about 2 years before Amazon launched in the UK, which I think was in 1998. So 1996 was the year that I started secondary school. And for anyone that's not in the UK, secondary school generally covers from when you're about 11 years old to around 16 years old. So I started secondary school in 1996, so I'm giving away my age now, and that's where my entrepreneurial career really began. So throughout secondary school, I always kind of had this urge to try to make money in various different ways. So what I want to do is just go through some of the ways that I made money and explain what I learned from those, and that's what I'm going to do throughout this video, throughout the different stages of my career, explain what I did and some of the stuff that I learned from actually doing that. So the first business that I operated during my secondary school days, and that was selling drinks and food to other students and even teachers. Now, at the time, my brother worked for Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola were partnered with Cadbury's. So he had access to a staff shop where he could get food and drink super cheap. So I used to give my brother some money and tell him to buy a certain amount of drinks and a certain amount of chocolate and other food products that I would then take into school and sell on a daily basis. And I did this for a good couple of years. So I used to fill up my backpack with lots of drinks and lots of food, and that was crazy heavy, and I used to drag that to school, and every day I would pretty much sell out. And in addition to selling food and drink, I also used to sell game backups. Now, I never sold pirated games. I always used to back up games for other people. So back in the days, in the late 90s, having a CD writer on your PC meant that you could easily copy games for PlayStations and stuff like that. So quite often my friends would come to me, they'd want their game backed up, and I'd charge them a few pounds for that. So throughout secondary school, I was usually making money in one way or another from either selling food and drinks or from selling games. Now, the good thing about those business models is they taught me two important lessons. First is that word of mouth is super important. You know, I didn't have to tell everyone that I sold drink or tell everyone that I sold backup games. Just by selling to a few people, that word of mouth brought in additional custom. Also, I learnt the importance of repeat customers. So I knew that on a daily basis, when I loaded up with drinks and food, I would probably sell around 80% of that to the same customers that come back again and again. It was very rare that I would get to the end of the day and still be bringing home food or drink with me. So learning about the importance of word of mouth marketing and repeat customers at such a young age has been a big benefit throughout my career. The other thing that I started to get involved in throughout secondary school, and that was building websites. Now, this is when the internet was just starting to take off in the late 90s. And I remember going up to pretty much the geekiest kid in my class and saying to him, "How do you build these websites?" And he just said to me, "Oh, look into Front Page Express." Now, if anyone's ever built a website, Front Page Express in the early days was pretty much the go-to for anyone that was getting involved in the web world. And it was very much a what you see is what you get editor, and the code it would produce was absolutely terrible, but it used to do the trick. You know, back in those days, we only had to build a website to work with either Internet Explorer 4 or Internet Explorer 5. So all of the stuff we have today with regard to usability and lots of different browsers, that didn't exist. As long as that website worked in Internet Explorer, we were golden. So at that point, I started selling my first websites. And I remember, I think I was 12 or 13 years old, and I sold my first website to one of my dad's friends who would run a mortgage company at the time. And I think I sold it for like £250, which as a 12 or 13 year old in the late 90s, that was a lot of money to get for anything, let alone for selling a website which I built over a few days. So that was my real first injection of cash, and seeing that huge amount of money, I think, just continued to drive me for the rest of secondary school. So throughout the rest of secondary school, I'd be producing various websites, and I also started a few of my own websites. Now, back at that time, Flash games on websites were starting to become really popular. So I started a Flash games website where I shared games from other people, and it used to do quite well, and I made quite a bit of money from Google AdSense. And that website, along with some other websites that I launched, continued for the next kind of 5, 6, 7 years to make money in the background, all whilst I was completing my education and trying out other business ideas. We then got to 2001, where I took my GCSEs, did pretty well, and then moved into sixth form. Now, sixth form, for anyone that's not in the UK, covers from pretty much 16 to 18 at the time. So I spent 2 years at sixth form. Now, when I started sixth form, I had income coming in from my website businesses. I'd stopped doing the food and drinks, and I'd also stopped doing the game backups. However, I was making a bit of money from the websites. It was also then at sixth form that I got my first proper job. I got a retail job working at Safeways at the time, which is now Morrison's. And I would say, looking back honestly now, working in retail for a few years was probably the best possible business experience you can get. So if you're someone around the age at the moment looking for just a job for a few years, consider retail, because the communication skills you'll develop from working with people of all backgrounds is really, really advantageous to the rest of your business career. And I still fall back on some of those business skills. So I went from selling to my mates in school, which is a very, very different sales proposition, to selling to an old lady in my bakery working in Safeways, So you do learn a very diverse range of communication skills. So I'd have no hesitation in recommending a retail job for a couple of years, because it does have a huge impact on your communication skills, and also understanding how difficult some customers can potentially be. Now, when I started my first job, that gave me a bit of additional capital to invest in other areas. And one of the things that I used to do as a side income was buy and sell mobile phones on eBay. Now, back in the day when eBay fees were quite small and the competition was quite low, buying phones on eBay and reselling them was actually quite a good way of making money. I used to sit there with the Buy It Now open, looking for any new listings which I felt were undervalued. Then I'd buy that phone, get it delivered to myself, and then resell it, usually for a £15 or £20 profit, which is quite a bit of money at that age, and really, really helped top up my income that I was making from my retail job at the time. Now, after a couple of years, I completed sixth form and started university. Now, whilst I was at university, I continued my retail job. I stopped buying and selling mobile phones at that time so I could focus on university. However, once I got into university and realised I did actually have quite a bit of spare time, I kept my retail job going, and then a year or two into university, I got into doing boot fairs. Now, this is something one of my friends got me into. He told me what he was doing and invited me to come along one day, and then I kind of got this bug for doing boot fairs. So for the best part of I think it was about 6 months, from the summer all the way up to Christmas Eve, I think was the last time I did the boot fair. I used to go into London. There'd be lots of different wholesalers, so lots of different toy products and stuff like that. And I'd go to all of these different suppliers. I'd fill up the boot with inventory using some of the money from my retail job. I'd then take that inventory to the local boot fair on Saturdays and Sundays, and usually try and make about a 50% markup on all of those products. And generally, it did very, very well. Now, the turnout would depend on the weather and where you were located, but generally the boot fair was quite a lucrative business model, and also something I really enjoyed doing, because again, it taught me additional business skills. It certainly taught me about negotiating and how hard that some people like to negotiate. So from trying all of these business models so far, I'd certainly picked up a few skills which were beneficial to me as I moved on throughout my career. Now, as I moved towards the third year of university, a job became available in the university gym, which was paying a lot more than my retail job. So after 3 years, I quit my retail job and started my gym job. And that job lasted throughout the rest of my university days. Also at university, I met my future business partner, which I'll come back to in a moment. So as I was graduating university, which I think was in 2006, about 2 or 3 months before the end of the semester, before I actually took my finals exams, I managed to get a job at a web design company. So I knew that regardless of how my exams actually went, I had a job in place and was ready to start. And I actually think I started that job a month or two before university officially finished, because I remember them giving me a day or two off to take some of these final exams. So I joined the web design company. Thankfully, I already had a lot of skills from being involved in websites since I was young, but also I did a degree in internet technologies as well. So starting a proper job in web design felt like a natural step. And I joined the company as a CSS developer. So for anyone that's not involved in the web world, CSS developer, basically the CSS is the code behind what you see on the screen. So it depicts how the stuff is structured, the colors, the font styles, all of that is controlled by the CSS. So I joined as a junior CSS developer, and within 18 months had become the senior and was heading up that department. Now that business was a family run business, and there wasn't really anywhere you could go once you reached the senior level in your department. Also at the time, my friend from university had started working for another web design company and was starting to get the same sort of feeling. So he said to me one day, "Have you ever fancied starting your own business?" I said yes, and next thing we know, we both quit our jobs and started our own web design business. Well, it wasn't a traditional web design business. We started an outsourcing business. So we took work off of lots of other companies in the UK. So we saw it as a gap in the market because people are outsourcing to India. That's a very, very common place to outsource web work. However, they weren't necessarily getting the quality they wanted to do. So by us starting a proper limited company and offering outsourcing within the UK, it did appeal to a number of web design companies and marketing agencies, and we did do quite well from doing that. So I spent about 4 years in business with my business partner, and we did try a couple of different ideas throughout that time. One of them was running our own e-commerce website. We started selling gaming headsets. Now, if you're familiar with gaming headsets, you may have heard of Turtle Beach. Now, in the late noughties, when Turtle Beach was just breaking through, they weren't really a big name in the UK, but there was quite a bit of demand for them. So we started this gaming website company selling Turtle Beach headsets, and that was just starting to get some traction when all of the big retailers started stocking them. So it soon became clear that we were no longer able to compete with those guys because we just did not have the buying power. The only unique selling point we had was our price, and once the big boys started getting involved in large quantities, we couldn't even compete on price either. So although that was a painful lesson, it was also a very, very good lesson, because now going forward, I knew that I should never compete on anything just based on price. We need to be able to offer more to a product or service than just price alone. So sometimes the things you go through in your career, which seemed like a bump at the time, will hopefully be beneficial to you in the long run. The other thing that we experimented with as well was launching our first mobile app. Now, before I get into the details of that, I just want to double back to when I was working at the web design company. Now, when I was working at the web design company, I developed my own Flash game based on a paper puzzle that someone had shown me one lunchtime. Now, this paper puzzle was super addictive and everyone in the office was trying to complete it and no one actually could. So I found a developer that could build this into a Flash game and launched it on my Flash website and a number of other Flash websites. And that game was a massive hit, and some months was making me between $1,000 and $2,000 of advertising from that game alone. But it was pretty short-lived. That income only lasted for kind of 3 to 5 months before things started to reduce. However, I brought that same concept to my business partner and said, look, we should launch this as a mobile app. Flash gaming days are over, but mobile apps and mobile gaming is on the rise. So let's launch this game that was proven as a Flash game on the mobile platform and see if we can make it a success. Unfortunately, that app fell flat on its face. And the reason being that it fell flat on its face the second time around as an app is that I had no route to market. Now, the first time around, I had my own successful Flash game websites. I also knew all of the other good gaming websites to get the game submitted to. So I immediately got some traction. With my mobile app, although the app was good, we had no way of launching it, or we weren't experienced enough to know how to launch the app properly. And again, that was an important lesson. You can have the best idea in the world, but unless you have a clear route to market, it is very, very unlikely to succeed. So after 4 years with my business partner, I took the difficult decision to say to them, look, I want to move on and start doing my own thing. It was nothing against my business partner. I had a great business partner and I have no qualms in working with him again. It was more a case from a personal point of view. I wanted to try other things. I was starting to lose some interest in web design. I noticed that I was starting to turn up at the office a bit later and leaving a bit earlier, and it wouldn't have been fair to me to keep treating the business and my business partner like that. So I made the decision and said to him, look, I don't see this as my future going forward. And then over the space of the next couple of months, we agreed how to split the businesses. He took the outsourcing business and I took the web design business that we had started together recently. Although the outsourcing business was performing a lot better, I felt that it was only fair for him to have that because I was the one that wanted to leave the business. So I took the web design business that we had just started, which had very, very few clients and wasn't making a huge amount of money, and then run with that to try and turn it into a proper income. So the web design business that I had been given as part of the split was a traditional client-facing web design business. So I had to go out and land my own clients and build the websites for them. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say I found the web design business super, super exciting. However, it did allow me to try other things that I've always wanted to do and provided that baseline revenue stream for that. So for example, throughout running the web design business, I was able to try trading Forex, which was something that I've always wanted to do. And if it's something that's interesting to you, make sure you check out my other channel, honestmoney.co.uk. I've got a video on there about a beginner's guide to Forex. So trading Forex was something I was able to do because I had that baseline income. I was also able to take time off to carry out a house renovation, which I really, really enjoyed. And just try various other things because I had that core income there. So there's something to keep in mind. Sometimes you need that core income to allow you to try other ideas that you find much more exciting. And that pretty much brings us up to the present day. I run that web design business for about the best part of 10 years, trying different things. And then about 2 years ago, I saw an advert about Amazon FBA on YouTube. And I haven't looked back since really. I spent months and months researching it, and within 6 months or so had launched my first FBA product. Also, in addition to starting an Amazon FBA business, I started an Amazon FBA YouTube channel, which you guys are watching now. And the main reason I started that channel was to keep me focused, because if you're documenting your business, trust me, it does help keep you focused. And it did have that impact, and it really, really kept me focused. So the channel itself was actually quite slow to grow. I think it took me about 6 months to actually get my first 100 subscribers, whereas nowadays the channel is getting over 100 subscribers per week. So things have changed quite drastically on that front. Of the success of the first channel, I've also launched a second channel, which allows me to talk about other business and personal financial topics, which I can't necessarily cover on an Amazon FBA related channel. And at the moment, I'm also starting my new print on demand company, which again is going to be documented on that other channel. So that's where I'm at the moment. I've got the income is coming from Amazon FBA, from the 2 YouTube channels, AdSense marketing from that, and affiliate marketing off the back of those, and hopefully shortly from the print on demand company as well. The web design company itself was closed down a couple of months ago, but thankfully all of the skills I have from my web design days are really, really useful when it comes to Amazon FBA, to YouTube, and also to print on demand. So that's my story. That's where I started all the way from 1996 up to now in 2020. So hopefully you guys found this useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate if you could scroll down, hit that like button. It makes a big difference. And if you're not subscribed, please do. And I'll see you guys in the next video.